I didn't plan to spend the summer at my godmother's place. The original idea was to stay with a friend near campus, pick up a part-time job, and maybe even take a couple of online classes. But plans fell through: roommate drama, a canceled internship, and then my mom called out of the blue. "Lena said you're always welcome," she said. "She's got the extra room. Just for a few weeks until things settle." Lena. To me, she had always just been Aunt Lena, though we weren't technically related. She'd been part of my life since I was a kid, my mom's best friend, their photos together dating back to high school. I remembered her vaguely from holidays and barbecues. Tall, confident, with a dry wit and those sharp, observant eyes. She was the kind of woman people paid attention to even when she wasn't trying. I hadn't seen her in nearly 4 years. When I arrived, her place looked just like I expected. Clean, quiet, filled with warm light and the scent of vanilla candles. Everything in place. Minimal, tasteful. She greeted me at the door barefoot, in jeans and a linen shirt, her dark hair tied back loosely, like she'd just stepped out of a magazine shoot without knowing it. "You've grown," she said, her tone playful but direct. "You look different." "You haven't," I replied before thinking, then instantly felt awkward. She smiled at that. "Come in." Her house was quiet, no kids, no pets, no husband. She'd divorced years ago and never remarried. It was just her. And now me. The guest room was simple but comfortable. Soft sheets, heavy curtains, a small desk by the window. I set down my bag and tried to ignore the weird flutter in my chest. Maybe it was just being back in a house that felt too clean. Or maybe it was seeing her again, not as the distant Aunt Lena from my childhood, but as someone different. That first evening we sat in the kitchen, sipping tea. She asked about school. I asked about her gallery work. She laughed easily, tilted her head when she listened, and I caught myself watching the way she moved her hands when she spoke. Later, as I got ready for bed, I caught a glimpse of her through the slightly open bathroom door, hair damp, wrapped in a robe, wiping steam off the mirror. I looked away immediately, but it stuck in my mind longer than it should have. The next morning, she made breakfast: eggs, toast, fresh-cut fruit. No makeup, just a tank top and soft pants, her hair in a messy bun. We sat across from each other, knees almost touching beneath the table. "You sleep okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I lied. I had barely slept. She nodded, sipping coffee. "You always used to kick the wall when you were restless." I blinked. "You remember that?" "I remember a lot more than you think." The way she said it, soft, casual, but heavy with something unspoken, made my chest tighten. For the next few days, things felt normal, or close to it. I helped her rearrange the garage, fix a curtain rod, carry boxes from the attic. We moved around each other with ease, too much ease, maybe. She'd hand me tools and touch my shoulder when explaining something. Her fingers would linger just a second too long. I'd brush past her in the hallway and feel the heat of her skin. One night, I stayed up late in the living room watching an old movie. She came in wearing a long cardigan over a thin shirt, curled up on the couch next to me, her bare legs tucked underneath. We didn't talk much, but we didn't need to. The silence felt alive. At one point, she turned to me, eyes half-lidded from wine and exhaustion. "You're different now. Is that good or bad?" She didn't answer, just gave me a look I couldn't quite read. I went to bed that night with my mind racing. Every sound in the hallway made me sit up. Every creak, every soft footstep. But nothing happened. The house stayed still. The moment passed, or so I thought. On the 5th day, the tension began to build. It was in the way she stood a little closer than necessary. In the way her laughter lingered. In the way her robe slipped just slightly when she stretched for something on the top shelf. And it was in me too. I tried to shake it off. Told myself it was all in my head. That she was just being kind. Familiar. Maternal even. But the line between what I felt and what was real was starting to blur. I was reading in my room that afternoon when I heard her voice down the hall. Hurried, breathless, close. Then the door opened fast. And there she was. She stood in the doorway, barefoot, damp hair falling around her face, robe loosely tied at the waist, chest rising and falling like she just rushed up the stairs. Her eyes locked on mine. "We don't have much time," she said, voice low but urgent. I sat up in bed slowly, still holding the book I hadn't been reading for the past 20 minutes. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I was too stunned to form words. She stepped inside and gently shut the door behind her. "Lena?" I finally managed. She took a step closer. "I thought you left." Her words made no sense. I hadn't gone anywhere. My car was in the driveway, my shoes by the door. "I didn't," I said. "I was just—" Her eyes scanned the room, as if confirming we were alone. Then she let out a breath and sat on the edge of my bed without asking. I was frozen. She smelled like shampoo and warm towels. Her robe, though secure, left one shoulder bare. A single drop of water slid down her collarbone and disappeared into the fabric. "I heard a voice in the hallway," she said, more to herself than to me. I thought it was, "Never mind." My heart was racing. "Lena, what's going on?" She turned to look at me, and the energy in the room shifted. Something in her face changed. The tension that had been building for days now filled the air between us like static. "I shouldn't be in here," she said, almost in a whisper. "But I keep thinking about last night." I swallowed hard. "What about it?" She gave a faint, almost bitter smile. "You looked at me like you saw me." "I did." Her eyes lingered on mine. "No, I mean really saw me. Not as your mom's friend. Not as the person who used to take you to swimming lessons. As someone else." I didn't deny it. The room was too quiet. I could hear my pulse in my ears. "Maybe I should go," she said, and began to stand. But something in me snapped. "Wait." She paused, half standing, robe shifting slightly at the motion. I took a breath. "I did see you, and I haven't stopped." Silence. Her hands tightened around the edge of her robe. "I thought I was imagining it. The way you looked at me, the way the air felt different when we were in the same room." "You weren't." She sat down again, closer this time. My knee brushed hers through the fabric. "I didn't come in here to start anything," she said carefully. "But I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how I felt sitting next to you on the couch. About how you didn't move away. I didn't want to." She turned her face toward me fully now. "That's the problem." I let the silence sit for a moment. "I'm not a kid anymore," I said. "No, you're not," she agreed, almost sadly. We were sitting so close now that I could feel the heat from her skin. Her robe had loosened just slightly, revealing more of her collarbone, the top of her chest. But I didn't stare. I looked only at her eyes. "And you?" I said. "You haven't treated me like a kid since I got here." That landed. She looked down at her hands for a long time, then back at me. "So what now?" "I don't know." Her voice dropped. "You know what scares me?" I shook my head. "That this isn't just a moment. That I've already crossed something in my head. That if I walk out now, I'll regret it." "Then don't walk out." She blinked slowly, like processing that thought. "I keep thinking this is just heat or summer or loneliness," she said. "But it doesn't feel like that when I look at you." I reached out, slowly, and took her hand. Her fingers twitched, but didn't pull away. "No one needs to know," I said quietly. "Not now. Not ever, if that's what you want." Her lips parted. That's not what I want. The room felt impossibly still. My hand still holding hers. Her knee still touching mine. Her eyes locked on me like we were standing on the edge of something we couldn't name. Then, finally, she leaned forward, not fast, not dramatic. Just enough for her forehead to brush mine. I shouldn't be doing this, she whispered. I know. She closed her eyes. But I want to. And then she kissed me. Soft, brief, like a question. But it said everything. When she pulled back, she didn't look at me right away. Her breath trembled slightly, like she wasn't sure what she'd done. I answered with silence. Just one more look, steady and certain. She stood slowly, adjusted her robe, and stepped toward the door. But before she opened it, she turned. We'll talk tomorrow, she said. I nodded. Okay. And thank you. For what? For not making me feel crazy. Then she slipped out as quickly as she'd come in. The door clicked shut behind her, but it didn't feel like she'd left. I stayed completely still, sitting on the edge of my bed, trying to process what had just happened. My body felt like it was vibrating, as if her presence had soaked into the air itself. Her scent, shampoo, warm skin, something soft and clean, lingered in the room like an aftershock. It wasn't just the kiss. It was everything before it. The breath in her voice, the way she looked at me, the way I couldn't stop looking back. She'd said we didn't have much time. But time for what? To feel what we'd been avoiding? To say something we shouldn't? To stop before it went further? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed replaying everything. Every second of her in the doorway, robe clinging to her skin, hair damp, lips parted. Every word we'd said. The way her forehead had pressed against mine. The way her kiss had felt more like a question than a mistake. By morning, the house was quiet again. Too quiet. I hesitated before going downstairs, unsure of what kind of silence would be waiting. But when I entered the kitchen, it was as if nothing had changed. She stood by the counter, back turned, robe replaced with a fitted t-shirt and soft pants, hair pulled up neatly, a mug of coffee in her hand. Calm, composed, unreadable. Morning, she said. Morning. She didn't look at me, just stirred her coffee. I'm heading to the store soon. Need anything? No, I'm good. Still, she didn't turn around. I poured myself a glass of juice and leaned against the counter, watching her carefully. She finally looked at me over her shoulder briefly, then back at the window. I meant what I said last night, I said. I know. You kissed me. I know, she repeated. I waited, but she didn't say more. Then, can we just have today be normal? The words hit hard. Not cruel, but protective. Like she was trying to box it all back up. I nodded slowly. If that's what you want. It's not about what I want. It's about what's smart. Smart. That word landed like a cold stone between us. She left for the store 20 minutes later. Keys jingling, door closing behind her. I stayed inside, pacing, restless. The quiet didn't feel soft anymore. It felt like avoidance. I tried to read. I tried to scroll. I even went outside and sat on the steps, but my eyes kept drifting to the driveway. She came back around noon, and she wasn't alone. A man stepped out of the car with her. About her age, well-dressed, clean-shaven. They were talking, too casual, too familiar. He carried a bag of groceries as they walked up the steps. Lena didn't see me watching from the hallway. He placed the bag on the counter and gave her a quick hug before heading back to his car. I stayed hidden until he left. Then I walked into the kitchen, pretending I hadn't seen anything. Friend of yours? I asked as casually as I could. She glanced up. Yeah, just someone I know from the gallery. He helped me carry the heavy stuff. I nodded, but something twisted inside me anyway. "You okay?" she asked, sensing the shift. "Yeah, just tired." We spent the afternoon in the same space but not together. She went into her office. I stayed in the living room. Occasionally, she'd pass through, say something casual, but the air was full of everything we didn't say. By evening, I couldn't take it. I knocked lightly on her door. She looked up from her laptop, surprised. "Hey, can we talk?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Of course." I stepped inside and closed the door. She sat on the edge of her bed, arms crossed loosely over her chest, like she was bracing herself. I stayed standing, afraid if I sat, I wouldn't be able to keep this as level as I needed to. "Last night wasn't just a mistake," I said quietly. "No, it wasn't." "So what now?" She didn't answer right away. "You're young." "So? I'm not." "That's not a reason." "It is when it changes everything." I stepped closer. "It already has." Her eyes flickered. "You don't know what this would mean." "Not really." "I know that I'm not confused." She laughed softly, but it wasn't amused. "You think this is just about clarity? It's about risk. It's about what happens next." "Then tell me." "I can't." "Why?" Her voice dropped. "Because the moment I do, it becomes real." There it was again, the hesitation, the fear, the weight of consequence hanging in the air. I sat down beside her, close but not touching. "I'm not asking you for anything you don't want," I said, "but don't pretend we can go back." She turned to me then, and I saw it, everything she hadn't said. Her eyes filled with it. Her posture crumbled just a little, and in that moment she stopped pretending. "You're not a kid anymore," she whispered. "You already said that." "I need to hear it again." I reached out, slowly, deliberately, and touched her hand. She didn't pull away, but she didn't lean in either. "What are we doing?" she asked. I held her gaze. "Something we should have talked about days ago." Her breath caught. Then she stood. "Come with me," she said quietly. "To where?" "My room. The real one." I followed her down the hall, into the room I hadn't entered since I got there. She turned on a soft light, then closed the door, and locked it. The soft click of the lock sounded louder than it should have. Final. Certain. She turned to face me, backlit by the amber light of the bedside lamp. Her robe from the night before was gone, replaced now by a loose sweater that hung slightly off one shoulder and shorts that barely showed beneath the hem. But it wasn't what she wore. It was the way she stood there, still, waiting. I didn't move. Not yet. My heart was beating too fast. Not from nerves, not even from desire, but from the weight of the moment. From how much had changed without either of us meaning for it to. She sat on the edge of the bed and looked down at her hands. "This isn't how I pictured any of this." I stepped forward slowly. "How did you picture it?" She gave a small laugh. "I didn't. That's the problem. I never let myself imagine something like this. Not with you. And now." She looked up at me. Her eyes weren't hesitant anymore, just tired of fighting something we both knew had already happened. "Now I can't stop imagining it." I sat beside her, close but careful. The room felt like it had shrunk, like the walls had folded inward around us. "You said we didn't have much time," I murmured. She nodded. "Because I knew once I walked into that room last night, nothing would ever be the same again." "You were right. But I was too late," she said, eyes drifting toward mine. It had already changed, hadn't it? I didn't need to answer. She could see it. I reached for her hand again, and this time she met me halfway. Our fingers laced naturally, like they'd done it before in another version of us we hadn't dared to become until now. "I don't want this to be a secret," she said softly. But I don't want it to be a mistake either. It's not. You're too young to know what you want. I know I want you. The words landed heavy between us, but not like a confession. More like truth. She squeezed my hand. Her other one touched the side of my face, brushing a lock of hair back like she used to when I was a teenager. But this time it felt different. Not protective. Not maternal. Just real. I keep thinking someone's going to knock, she whispered. They won't. And if they do, let them. Her eyes searched mine. Then finally, she leaned forward and kissed me again. Not soft this time. Not questioning. Certain. It was a kiss that closed a chapter and started something else entirely. When we pulled apart, she didn't speak. She just leaned her forehead against mine, her breath steady now. You don't know how long I felt this, she said. How long I pushed it away. You're not pushing anymore. No, she agreed. I'm not. She lay back slowly, pulling me with her. Not in a rush, not with urgency, but with something quiet and deep. Our bodies aligned with ease, like we'd done this 100 times before in dreams. But even as our hands moved, as our legs tangled, there was no rush, just stillness, and understanding, and the silent acknowledgement that this was real now. Later, long after the room had gone dim, and our breathing had returned to normal, she turned toward me beneath the covers. Are you scared? She asked. No, me either. But I feel like I should be. I smiled. We'll figure it out. She studied me for a moment. You say that like you've done this before. I haven't, I said. But it feels like I have with you. She rested her head on my chest. Tomorrow everything might feel different. I nodded. But tonight, it's just us. She was quiet for a long time. Then, I used to come into your room when you were a kid, when your mom and I stayed up too late drinking wine. You'd always kick the blanket off. I'd sneak in and pull it back over you. I remember, I said. I just never told you. I never thought I'd be here again, she whispered. Only now you're not a kid, and I'm the one who can't sleep. You can now. Her hand slid across my chest, resting just below my collarbone. I don't know what this is, what we'll call it, or where it goes. We don't have to call it anything. She closed her eyes. You always did know how to make things feel simple. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say, because nothing about this was simple. And yet, in the stillness of her bedroom, with her skin against mine and her breath on my neck, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Like maybe time hadn't run out. Maybe it was just beginning.